put the thing in the comments, or you have to do that, Roz?
I have. No, you can do it. It said a broadcast was deleted on Facebook. Did you delete the face? Did you delete?
No,
What?
I didn't delete it.
It says go live to start the event on mine.
Me too.
It says it looks like the broadcast was deleted on Facebook. Try creating a new broadcast.
What?
Or just remove. Yeah, I don't know. Or just.
I didn't do that.
Because mine says start live video.
Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Let me figure out what's going on. I think when you changed it, you must have did something, Cindy.
Just now?
When you changed the whatchamacallit.
It says live in 52.
We're not going live nowhere because we deleted it. It got deleted.
Okay.
So it's gonna go live on crap. Go to crap.
What link did they receive from event? Good evening and welcome everybody. Happy Thursday. We're very happy to have everyone logged on joining us tonight. I am Damion Pratt, your moderator for the evening, and I'm happy to be here with these lovely ladies to just have a little discussion with you this evening. So we just want to get started by having our panel go around and introduce themselves, please.
Hi, I'm Dr. Roz Aker-Black.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Dr. Sonya Clyburn.
And good evening. I'm Dr. Cindy Dominique, and we're the Healing Pearl Doctors.
Great. Just so happy to have you all here this evening. But one thing I did notice, you all have on some pretty nice shirts there. If you could just tell us what's going on with those shirts this evening.
We are all graduates of HBCUs. I am a Fiskite from Fisk University. I graduated in the year of 2000 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology.
Yes, and I'm a proud Ram from Winston-Salem State University with a bachelor's degree in psychology. And I also attended Bowie State University with my master's in counseling psychology. And I'm just going to throw in Howard University too, because I had my clinical training there. So, and as you all know, I'm also employed as an HBCU director at a counseling center. So I have to represent all the HBCUs.
Yes. And I attended Virginia State University. I am a Trojan. And as you can see, it's pink and green. So that means I'm a member of the illustrious organization of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Indeed.
Indeed, we are.
That's right. That's right.
Indeed, they are. So can one of you, Cindy, let's start with you. Tell me how it feels and the importance of HBCUs to you, and how important was it to you with your training and coming up?
Attending an HBCU, I'm originally from New York, and I didn't know very much about colleges, but people from higher the other students who went to Virginia State, I went to Virginia State just to visit. And I said, wow, this is an experience. And plus watching A Different World back then, I'm like, I want to go to a school that like that. And Virginia State was that type of school. And it was the environment. It really was home where I was empowered. I was inspired. Just seeing the beauty of diversity of Black people at this university. It was the best thing for me. And it allowed me to blossom. It allowed me to grow in so many different ways. The professors that we had, the activities we had at the school, all these different things brought Cindy out in more ways than one. And it was what I needed to be nourished.
Great. What about you, Roz? How was it for you?
You're muted.
My apologies. My dog was barking, guys. So my apologies. gets excited when I talk about Fisk, okay? But going to an HBC was one of the absolute best decisions I made in my entire life, basically. I learned, I grew. I was around people who were like me. I'm from a very small town in Georgia, and I don't know if Cindy or Dr. Sonya, if Dr. Cindy or Dr. Sonya can relate, but I used to get, oh, you think you're a white girl, you think you're this. And like when I was in high school, and that used to drive me crazy. When I got to Fisk University, I found my people, I found my tribe. I found other people just like me who were willing to do whatever it takes to get an education and make it work. Many were first, just like myself, many were first generation college students. And so Fisk is a family. It's a small school. I think at the time that I was there were only 8,000 students on campus, and that included the graduate school as well. But when I tell you the love was amazing, when I tell you that the professors were amazing, when I tell you that I have lifelong friendships from my HBCU, it's fantastic. Just the best experience ever. I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world.
Great.
Yeah, I totally join both of my colleagues. I mean, attending an HBCU definitely shaped me and my identity as a Black woman. Also, it shaped my career in terms of having wonderful mentors to kind of shape me professionally, make sure I dot all my I's and crossed all my T's. The culture, being at an HBCU, everyone was vibrant. And the education, I was not a number. I was a part of a greater community to elevate people of color. I think when we think about attending an HBCU, the reasons why HBCU started were to educate African American people, yes, right? And so we're in a leading amount of colleges that are actually graduating African Americans, and particularly in STEM. So I think attending an HBCU would definitely bring life to your life. I mean, because homecoming and all those types of things is just a sense of culture and community and support.
And pride.
And pride.
And pride.
And pride.
Definitely.
And it's just a beautiful thing to see Black excellence every single day. You're not in a space of where you have to feel like I got to be twice as good. You're in a space where, hey, I got you. We both gonna ace this, and it's healthy competition. And so
Right.
you are rooting for your classmates just as much as you're rooting for yourself. So it's is it Issa Rae who says I'm rooting for everyone that's Black?
Yes.
That's what going to the HBCU feels like. I'm just rooting for everybody that looks like me. Representation matters.
And I think too, it limits the whole systemic racial bias that people may experience. Now, I'm not saying that all HBCUs, they have their struggles now, but the ones that we typically see is, I guess, not as bad in an HBCU experience.
Yeah. And those things I can fortunately, unfortunately speak from the other side, not attending an HBCU, but attending a PWI where when my freshman year, we had 20 Black people on campus. And I knew them all, of course. So yeah, it is a different environment. Anytime we had the opportunity to drive over to Virginia Union or to Virginia State to get some culture, we did that because and it is a different type. You do feel that they can walk normally, but we have to fly to get the same level of recognition sometimes. So it is a different environment, and you still can get what you need, but there's an extra level of nurturing. I think that's missed in that non-HBCU environment where we just have to be more proactive in finding other ways to get that sense of community and relationships that we need.
And Damon, to be honest with you, I think we experienced that in our the three of us went to graduate school together. We all got our doctorates together at the American Schools of Professional Psychology. And I think it maybe was the second semester. I think it was only like 7 Black people in our program that started with us. And I think it was like the second semester, I was like, listen, we got to figure out a way to get a Black student union going on here because this is crazy. And then we started like the nation and we just started looking out for each other. Like if you need this, let me tell you what teacher to take, what teacher not to take, what you need to do in this class, what you need to do in that class. It's a totally different experience from an HBCU, I would say.
Definitely. So this is for 1 second. It looked like we might be having a little bit of a technical difficulty on the stream.
Okay.
So we want to make sure people are able to see us. And on the Facebook stream, it's not streaming us.
But it is streaming.
It's streaming a wall.
Crap.
Yeah, people are saying they can't get in.
Oh, did I do something? I think
Yes.
I
But
messed it up.
it's okay that you did, but it's okay. Let me see it. Let me see what I can do here on the back end. Please hold those that are
Yes.
watching with us now. Please hold.
So I'm trying to see whose desk that it was.
That was probably mine. I messed it up.
Did you have lip gloss on your desk?
Yes. How do I?
Number 505.
I don't know how to get out of it.
What are you doing?
I'm not doing anything.
Okay, I was about to say, don't do nothing. Don't do anything just yet, my friend.
Yeah, I see. Kelly Goodman had typed something on there.
Yes.
So since we're already in the broadcast, I can't go back and add to the Healing Pearls. So if we can just share it from our Facebook pages, that would be great. It's connected to my Facebook page. If you could just share from my Facebook
From
page
your Facebook?
Yeah, to the Healing Pearl page. Yeah. Well, here's the beauty about technology. It's great until it doesn't work.
Of course.
Well, I still don't see how to do it.
How to share from my page?
Yes, I went to your page.
Okay, I see it. Yes.
And then just share it over to the Healing Pearls page. Hold with us, bear with us, everyone, please.
On your Dr. Roz Aker-Black?
No, just on my regular Facebook page.
Oh, okay.
If one of us shares it, it should be cool.
Okay.
So share it on our Facebook page.
Yeah, share it on the Healing Pearls page. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for catching that, Damon. I don't even see where you saw the notes at, but thank you for catching that.
Oh, I didn't catch it first. Sonya caught it.
Okay, well, thank you, whoever caught it.
There goes Cindy and her anxiety. Talk about anxiety.
I cannot add it to the Healing Pearls. I just did it to my page. For some reason, it won't let me do the Healing Pearls.
Okay. All right. Well, the good thing is that this is recording and we can always share it after the fact. So
yeah,
we can move on, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, look, they didn't pay for it. So.
Yes, praise you, Lord. You're right about that.
Did someone put it on the Healing Pearls page?
Were you able to, Cindy? No?
I'm attempting to.
I'll see if it might let me do it.
Okay. Let's see if it'll let you do it, Damon. Yep, you did it, Damon. I just got a notification that you shared a link on the Healing Pearls page. Thank you, Damon. So hopefully those individuals can see us there.
Yes.
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 Thank you, Damon.
Thank you.
Okay,
Look at
no
you
problem.
moderating and fixing all the technical issues. Come through.
I will not touch the phone ever again.
It's okay. It's all
It's
right.
all right. It's all right. So we're getting back on track here, and just thank you all for bearing with us that are out there. We have technical difficulties. You know how the world is today. We can't live without computers, but when the computers don't act right, we can't live. So we're making it work, and we're going to continue to push forward and get through some of this discussion.
Yes.
First, one thing that we didn't have on our agenda that I want to personally put out is this is also Social Work Month, as I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so I always want to put that out there. So I'm happy about that and very proud to be a
Happy
licensed
Social
clinical
Workers
social worker.
Month.
So
Thank you for all that you do.
thank you very much. But we also want to look at this as Women's History Month. And so it's a very important time for us as a people to recognize the achievements and the great accomplishments that women have done over the years and how we can contribute to our society. Because too often we don't recognize women as we should. And you know, this is a patriarchal society, and sometimes we have to be forced to take a look at what others are actually doing to contribute. You know, and 1981 what seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago to start recognizing Women's History Week and then on to Women's History Month. So if we start with Sonya, tell me what Women's History Month means to you.
Yeah, it's about recognizing women in the past, present, and possibly future regarding just respect and honoring their accomplishments, identifying creativity, nurturance, allowing people to have an understanding that women are important in our society in terms of so many different disciplines, caretaking, all of those things. So when I think about Women's Month, I'm looking about and feeling about being encouraged, having a safe place, people having an understanding and respecting of women and in their jobs and their emotionality. It's so wrapped up. There's so many things wrapped up in it. But when I think about it, I look at the past, present, and possibly the future and recognizing accomplishments of women and the importance of women in our society.
What about you, Cindy?
Well, I'm a woman, and this is a blessing to be a woman, and blessing to be a Black woman because I wouldn't want to be anything else, honestly. Um, when you think about the role women have played in every society, in every aspect, in every niche of our world, we play an important part, and we don't always get the credit um, in the things that we do. We birth nations, we birth everything. Nothing can come from us if it's not coming from a woman. And people fail to recognize that a lot of times the strength, the endurance, the perseverance, the resilience, time and time again, women have to come and save and do this and do that. And we don't get the recognition, but being a woman is the best thing ever. I wouldn't change it for the world, honestly. Being a Black woman, let me just say.
Definitely. And Ross, what would you add to that?
So Women's History Month means everything to me, and I'll tell you why. Because here's the truth. We deserve to be here, so we need to take up the space, whether they give it to us or not.
Mhm.
We deserve as women to be here, so we need to take up space. And there are so many times in our lives where we have just been pushed to the back, not given the credit that we deserve, right? Or told that we're not good enough. I mean, there was a time when women we couldn't get housing on our own unless we had a husband. I mean, think about if those things were still going on today. There would be a lot of homeless women, which is crazy, which makes no sense. And so I think Women's History Month, what it means to me is that we recognize the brilliance, the geniusness of women, and how amazing we are in terms of handling our business. So Women's History Month allows us to change the narrative about us as women. So that's what it means to me.
And this is important at this time of the year with the Women's History Month going on, with what we have going on in the Supreme Court right now with, if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, please forgive me, Ketanji Onyeka Brown Jackson, and her confirmation hearing that she's going through and everything. It's important to see her as a Black woman and this what she's accomplishing, but it's also saddening to see what she's being put through this process. And one thing that stands out, which really stood out for me, was how Cory Booker spoke on her behalf the other day. Because for one, Cory Booker is one of my favorite politicians, and I don't really like a lot of politicians, but I like Cory Booker because he will keep it real, and I love that. But he was saying, I'm just sitting here saying nobody's going to steal my joy, and nobody's going to make me angry. He said, you have earned this spot. You are worthy. You are a great American. And he also mentioned how when he sees her, he sees his mother, he sees his aunt, he sees Black women. And just to hear that, because nobody else was going to say that but Cory.
Right.
But it needed to be said in that moment.
And it came from an emotional place because he felt it. Every word that he said, it came from the abyss of his heart. And that was such a beautiful thing from a Black man to a Black woman.
To a Black woman.
Yes.
And might I also say that his mother is an HBC alum. She is a Fiskite, so he was raised by a Fiskite. So he's got that HBC appeal. But you're right, Damon. When we say protect Black women, Cory showed up. When I tell you, he said, you belong here, you are worthy, nobody's going to take my joy. I was in tears because by that time, the Honorable Ketanji had been questioned at least for about 16 hours. And the questions were stupid. They were dumb questions. I mean, it didn't even make sense. And it was the unmitigated gall that they couldn't come up with anything else because this woman is above reproach. Her accolades are amazing. Everything that she has accomplished is amazing. There's really nothing that you can say that would say that this woman didn't deserve to be here. So I was like, go ahead, Cory.
Even the friendship that she had from her colleague who was her roommate in college, the friendships that they had for over 30 years, meeting her husband, the relationship that she has with her husband, the relationship that she has with her parents, her siblings, her daughter. It was just remarkable, and it was just a beautiful thing to see in more ways than one.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you were watching her daughter. Her daughter was saying everything that her mama couldn't say. Because when I tell you, the Honorable Ketanji was there with so much poise and grace.
Yes.
And they were determined to get her to be this stereotype of the angry Black woman. And she showed none of that. None of that. When I tell you she stepped up to the plate, and I've been in tears watching this woman handle the way that they've been questioning her, because it's so inspirational. And she's perfect for such a time as this.
Right. And I think it demonstrates that whole racial systemic issue. Though I know doing these interrogations, it's difficult, but I think they're going over and beyond. And it's just a definite look at how racism shows up in our country.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, if she wasn't qualified, then she wouldn't have been on the appeals court. She wouldn't have been on the circuit court. So obviously,
this is her third time going through this. Exactly.
But it speaks about too how sometimes women, people of color, women, Black women, are seen in the workplace. And what that means. And many of us oftentimes suffer from imposter syndrome as it relates to, should we be there? Are we capable? Knowing good well that we are, but because of our credibility is always being questioned, that brings up so much. And I think this is indicative of what we experience.
Yeah.
And she's at the highest level, and she's in the face of where everyone can see it. So imagine what happens behind those closed doors, where it's not a public arena and everybody has eyes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, and part of this grilling that she's been going through um, looks back to with this being Women's History Month and the importance of having it be an inclusive time and a time where it's not just a narrow focus on what it means to be woman and feminine. And we were looking at part of that with Senator Blackburn from Tennessee was asking her, she said, can you provide a definition for the word woman? And
The stupidest thing ever.
they really got hung up on that because she's like, I can't, I'm not a biologist, which is a perfect answer.
Exactly.
But they got hung up on
that way.
Perfect answer.
You know, so what does it mean to you to make this an inclusive time of celebration during this month? Who wants to start? Roz, if you want to start with that.
What does it mean to me to make this an inclusive celebration?
Yeah, what does inclusive Women's History Month look like to you?
That's a fantastic question. And I think it involves all of us. Really, it involves every aspect of our womanhood, of who we are, and recognizing that it is okay to be vulnerable, it is okay to be emotional, it is okay to show up sometimes in ways that may not always make sense to other people, but it absolutely makes sense to you. And example, sometimes I cry for no reason, and it's perfectly okay. And when I have my moments when I have those moments, I have to go back and be like, Roz, what's going on with it? And I realize it's just the trauma of the day. You know, I think when we were going through the pandemic and the George Floyd era, there was this whole racial trauma that was taking place. But there's gender trauma as well. And we don't talk about that. You know, we don't talk about the things as women that we go through, the things that we have to endure, the microaggressions that we have to deal with. When we are sitting up in a place and someone refers to me as Roz, and I don't know you like that. Clearly, when I have the highest degree in the room, you can't just put the doctor in front of my name. Like, how is that? How is that taking anything away from you? But it has happened. I'm sure it has happened to Dr. Cindy, and I'm sure it has happened to Dr. Sonya, where women are minimized. And so I think the opportunity to be inclusive, to talk about the inclusivity for women, is that we have to talk about all the ugly parts and all the good parts. And the ugly parts is that we still aren't making the same amount as men, but sometimes doing twice the work. You know, we are still just looked at as someone to take notes rather than someone to lead the meeting. So I think we have to, when we talk about inclusivity, I think we have to look at all those parts where things are held against us, basically, and really have a real conversation about that.
Yeah. What else would you all have to lend to that?
I think for me, the inclusivity means, just being respectful. What does it mean to be a woman? If you're not a woman, are you respecting women?
Mhm.
Right? How does that show up on your daily life? And for those who may identify as, transgender and all those, them also having the respect of what that may look like for them in their identified pronouns, respecting that and being and working together harmoniously to elevate mindsets, younger mindsets, as well as older ones, about, inclusivity and what that means. Because in order for us to move, we have to include everyone for us to elevate. So I think that's important for me.
Good. Yeah. And Cindy, what do you think?
I think Dr. Sonya and Dr. Roz said everything.
Inclusion is tough today in our society because we are constantly being forced apart on so many different levels. Everyone is being forced to their corner of the room. and we're getting more tribal. Instead of coming together as a community, we are focusing more on our differences and the things that keep us apart instead of the things that can bring us together, our similarities. And that's unfortunate, and it's not new. It's been there since the beginning of the time with just separating men from women.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, more so than ever, we are being pushed into our corners to focus on why you're not like me instead of how we can work together and collaborate and grow as a community. And I think that's an important time. And that we can focus on that more now, especially this month. But it needs to, of course, go beyond this month. And it needs to be something that we focus on year round.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So following up with that, it's just looking at, I think you mentioned racial and gender trauma a little bit in the discussion there. And as we're dealing with that, as our people deal with that, looking at some of the effects of that on us in our day-to-day life, and some of the things that pop up are, just depression and anxiety. So to talk about that a little bit and how those traumas can affect our mental health on a day-to-day basis and causing not just anxiety and depression, but other mental health concerns that can come from that. So how do those traumas, as well as other things that's going on in society today, affect those things in our lives? And I'll leave that to the floor.
I think Dr. Sonya brought it up in terms of talking about the imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
If you are treated so much like you are not worthy, regardless of how much you have accomplished, at some point you start believing that. And that creates anxiety, that creates depression. It creates all types of things.
Mm-hmm.
The self-doubt, the self-loathing, the not thinking you're good enough, feeling unlovable, feeling unworthy. All of those things come hand in hand when we think about the trauma that is placed upon women. And I'm going to add this to it, upon Black women.
When I think about it from the psychosocial model, because it shows up biologically, it shows up socially, and it shows up psychologically, and it impairs us in so many different ways. And it could have an intergenerational effect on our bodies, our families, and our communities. And it could show up like diabetes in the physical sense. A lot of times, as a Haitian American, I remember people would say, "Oh, I have a headache. I have a headache," but when in actuality, that was stress demonstrating itself or manifesting in a physical format. So we have to think about everything as when it comes to depression and anxiety and how it manifests in our world that we live in and day out. Sleeping difficulties. If you can't sleep or you dislike your job because you're dealing with racial trauma day in, day out, it might come in a physical form such as pain in your body and you can't sleep. All these different things play into it when you think about depression and anxiety. It's every aspect and every level of your being that it interrupts.
So I totally agree with what my colleagues have said. I think one of the things that really stood out for me is when you think about depression and anxiety, they're like first cousins, right? They typically they're coexisting amongst themselves. So it's important to pay attention to, like Dr. Cindy said, your body. How is your body? The signs and the symptoms. So what are you experiencing and what is the person seeing? So when you think about those things, is it causing you distress? Is it causing you danger? Is it causing you dysfunction? Is it causing you any other forms of danger or things like that? So say, for instance, anxiety. We know that it's worration, it's fear, it's threat, it's a loss of control, right? But it's separate from panic. Right. So we have to identify the difference between anxiety and panic. When people are traumatized, They feel it through their body. Hence, they may have those panic symptoms such as dizziness, shortness of breath, feeling lethargic, or heart racing, all sweaty palms, all those things. Well, depression is more on a continuum. There are so many different types of depression. There's unipolar, there's bipolar, there are different subtypes and prototypes of depression. So it may not be what you may be experiencing sadness, but it may not be depression. So it doesn't mark a depressive state unless it's based upon your duration. And that's important to note, because you can be sad, doesn't mean that you're depressed.
Absolutely.
Right. So we have to be clear with that with individuals.
Yeah, it's not just feeling blue.
Right.
No.
Feeling today I don't feel good because it's raining. That's not depression.
Right.
But if it's raining on the inside for 6 months straight, then we need to look at there's something clinically significant going on at that point.
Right. And what I teach my students, I tell them how to ascertain it in people. And this should be something that people should ascertain within themselves. Like I said, is this dysfunctional? Are you unable to function? Are you unable to get out of bed? Are you unable to go to work? Are you, distressed that it becomes so much that you can't do anything else? The duration, how long have you been feeling this way? Right? Is it longer than 7 days, or is it only 3 days? That might be something else.
Right.
And then lastly, is it danger? Because unfortunately, many people who are depressed may have feelings of hurting themselves or other people. So that is definitely a telltale sign.
Definitely. But unfortunately, especially in the Black community, we view these things in a unhealthy way, with the stigma that's attached to mental health, where it's like, okay, you just got to get over it, pick yourself up, push through. We hear it in society or in the media all the time. You just got to push through the hard times. It's not that bad, when sometimes it is that bad.
Yes.
And what I tell people is, if I could push through, then I would have pushed through.
Right.
Yeah.
If I could have handled it on my own, I would have by now, and I wouldn't have turned to this bottle to help me through it.
And here's another one that we do, and I apologize, I didn't cut you out, but I'm glad you brought that up, because there's another one that we do in our community. Just pray about it, girl. You don't think I ain't been praying?
Exactly.
Like, you don't think that I haven't gone to you don't think that wasn't my first thing to do, was to go to the Lord? Like, I hate when people do that. It is the most
it's minimizing.
It's minimizing someone's emotions and their pain.
Exactly.
But if
Not only that,
I'm sorry, Dr. Sonya, if it was a physical manifestation of an illness, then, do this, do that. But if because it's mental or psychological or emotional, then there's a lot of self-blame. Like, it's me doing it, and I'm not trying to work hard enough to fight it or to deal with it.
Right. And that's exactly what I was going to say, that many times when we say those words, just sit and pray, which is okay, but you got to do something beyond that.
Yes.
You have to.
Okay. You have to take action, because no one can get through it except for you. You
can have Jesus and therapy.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Who do you think put these therapists here?
Amen. Amen.
That's what I say. I mean, so prayer without works is dead. So I can't just sit here and just pray. It's prayer, and it's always an and. What else are we going to do? Because like I said, we end up leaving people out there by themselves a lot.
Yeah.
I know I remember a time where we had someone at my church. She kept coming to the altar and kept going through it, and I'm like, well, what are you doing different? Now we go pray with you. But you've been in the same state for like 6 to 8 months now. What are you doing different? What can we help you do? What else can we help you do? And that's the support we need to give each other also, and encourage people. Let's go seek out some assistance.
Right. You bring up a good point, Damon. It's about awareness. Like, I always think about, alphabet and putting things together, right? So it's about awareness and action. So once you're aware of something, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And you have to, be self-reflective to be aware. And unfortunately, many people aren't that way because they're numb. We didn't talk about being numb, which is also a part of anxiety and or depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always say about 90% is knowing, right? And the other 10% is just making the choice to change. It's making the choice to do something about it. But once you know, you have to act. There, you can't sit on it.
And we understand when people are depressed, they may not have the energy to
Mhm.
even act. And so that's where the community comes into play to support this person, to push them along because they don't have the energy to do it for themselves. And that's why it's paramount to connect and have a sense of community and connection.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because even with depression, people will feel isolated,
Yes,
they'll alienate, but having that perceived support is better than no support at all. So even if it's no one there, but they think it's someone there, that will help them. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
that's a good point. Mhm.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it is actually I've been looking at some research at work about just that level of support after suicide incidents or attempts
Mhm.
or ideation. That's in that first 90 days after leaving the hospital, just having someone there to be in contact with you. And it doesn't even have to be a therapist sometimes.
Mhm.
What we do is we just offer intensive case management during that time.
Mhm.
It just lowers the recidivism rate for suicide because they know that somebody cares and that
Absolutely.
somebody's
Yeah.
willing to support them as they're going
Right.
through that. So
And all you
that
need is
support is
one person.
important.
All
Yes,
you need is one person.
And many
exactly.
times people think that, depression is a part of suicidality, but it's really about feeling hopeless.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the distinguished element of it is the person feeling hopeless, right? So that's something, hopeless and helpless. So that's something we need to address. And that's why that support is there, should be there to instill that with the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I found when I was doing some reading, it said that it was talking about anxiety with African Americans. It says that we experience something called weathering,
Mhm.
which
Mm.
I'd heard a little bit before that, but not really. It says long-term erosion of mental and physical health due to chronic trauma, stress, and racism.
Mhm.
Mm.
So it's like
Black
we
fatigue.
talk about how we have to persevere through stuff all the time, but if you're
Yep.
always persevering and you're always fighting, it's going to slowly wear you down like water over a rock.
Yeah.
That rock is not going to look the same 10 years from now as it does today because it's constantly facing that trauma from the water racing over. And that same thing happens to us because we're constantly having to deal with something.
Hmm. There's
And
a book out now called Black Fatigue. I,
Mhm.
I suggest everyone to read it.
Mhm.
Black Fatigue. I forget the author, but very good book. It speaks about fatigue, anxiety, depression. Like people don't realize being Black. There, unfortunately, it's a wonderful thing being Black.
Yeah.
However, there are some unfortunate things we have to go through, and one of them is fatigue because our daily hassles that we have to go through. And then seeing certain things on the television and imposter syndrome and all these other things that may contribute to that fatigue is all illustrated in that book.
Mhm. Speaking of seeing things on television and just looking at how today we have to deal with things like social media and how that affects our mental well-being. And there's so much research out there now starting to look at how social media is tied to depression and anxiety, whether it's causative or it's correlation.
Mhm.
It's probably more correlation than causing it. Okay. But that's an important thing to look at now because I think a lot of times we have these people who might have already been depressed or anxious, and their only way of reaching out is through social media, and that just continues to make it worse.
Yes.
But of course, there are those that they may not have been depressed 2 months ago, but now after 2 months of seeing their name getting dragged on social media, some depression is there. So,
Yeah.
how have you interacted or just experienced that with your own clients and your own workplace with dealing with these mental health concerns and social media, especially with our younger people, but
I've
our
had
older too?
I've had to tell clients to cease with social media.
Yep. Yep.
Where
Yep. Yep.
I don't want you on Instagram. I don't want you on Facebook. I don't even want you to watch the news because your body can't handle it. And so we have to set those barriers in place to support them. And I hold my clients accountable, but this is what we have to do right here, right now. So though people are like, well, I need to go see. No, you do not. You cannot handle it at the present moment. You don't have the resources to do that. So I'm very firm with them as well to say you can't do that. Disconnect completely. Disconnect
Oh,
from the
I
matrix.
I
exactly.
I do the same, and I'm lucky enough that I run a nonprofit organization with middle school girls, and so their whole life right now is about social comparison. So
Mhm.
we have conversations about it, right? And I show them this is a filter, this is that. None of this stuff is real. So I have those conversations with our girls because at very young impressionable ages they think that they should look like Beyonce or Megan the Stallion or Cardi B, or they think that they should look like these people who are getting paid a lot of money, have a lot of popularity, right, on social media. They think that they should be those type of women. And so we try to change the narrative with our girls for them to see themselves a little bit different, that you have a little bit more to offer yourself than having plastic breast and booty. Like there's more to you than that. And so it does. It absolutely, I mean, and grown women too. It's not just our young girls, grown women too. And guys too.
Mhm.
Guys too are getting caught up on the whole social
Mm.
comparison on social media too. So it is a conversation worth having.
And there has been research to demonstrate with adolescents and social comparison that there's increased rates of depression and anxiety because they're seeing all these different celebrities or just influencers. Oh, they have this, they have that. Well, what does it mean if I don't have that? I remember I went to Catholic school, so I had a uniform all the time. And I used to be so happy that I had a uniform and I didn't have to think about what I had to dress up or wear to dress up every single day. The uniform was perfect. Oh, I'll just wear this. And there was no comparison because everybody was the same in that um, arena.
Mhm. Yeah, it can be overwhelming. And even if you look at us for adults, the majority of us now get all of our news or most of our news and information from social media. Now, we might watch the nightly news, but most of us, we're going to scroll and see who posts what about what's going on in the world. And it's always skewed one direction or the other.
True.
Mhm.
And then whatever your friends might be posting or liking, that shows up on your timeline. So you might be seeing things that are completely contrary to what you believe. So you're constantly seeing these negative things coming across your timeline. And we're absorbing this negativity on a regular basis. I know during the last election, I had to turn it off completely.
Oh
I
yeah.
am I am tired of hearing about these old white men going at each other, making decisions for me. I'm like, unfortunately, we're going to choose the lesser of the two evils. Sometimes we get to that point, but it's just constant negativity about what's going on in the world, and we're just
Yeah.
constantly absorbing that, and it affects our mood. It gets you. It's easy for that to cause you some depressed mood, just
Yeah.
facing what's going on in the world today all the time.
So really,
Yeah.
it's about protecting your peace.
That's right.
Protecting your
Absolutely.
mental.
Yes.
And during the George Floyd 2020 and the elections, I watched so much Netflix comedy. I said I
Me
have to be,
too.
I mean, really intentional about what I'm putting into my system.
Yep.
And I like all that you all have said, right? But the reality is people are curious. People seek the curiosity of knowing.
Mhm.
And so they have to have some boundaries.
Yeah.
That's the key, right? It's okay to look, but set some boundaries for yourself. And then when it's too much, turn it off,
Mhm.
because the reality is people are going to do what they want to do. Though it may increase or exacerbate emotionality, what are they going to do about it? So that's what I believe, that's what we should be talking about in terms of, okay, you have to be intentional, you have to take action, you have to set boundaries, and whatever else that you may need to do to fortify your peace of mind.
Mhm. Yeah, it's all about self-preservation and
Yeah.
protecting yourself. Like I will talk to my daughter and like, if you don't like this person, why is she still friending you?
Hmm.
If they're constantly saying things you don't want to hear, block and delete.
There you go.
That's something
Yeah.
that's so small and simple, but we don't want to do that because we fear we might miss something later.
Come
Yeah.
on now. That's that curiosity. That's what I was
Yeah.
talking about.
Exactly.
What is it? FOMO? FOMO? You don't want to
FOMO.
miss out. Fear of missing out.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm like, I want to miss out sometimes. Let me go out to the woods for a few days where there's no cell phone signal, and I'm in heaven. But that's the thing that we have to try to instill in our young people today is that you have to learn how to protect yourself from everything external that's coming that can anything that can steal your peace, like you said. You have to protect yourself against that.
Yeah.
And so that's tough. So what can we do? What can we recommend to people as ways to cope with depression, anxiety, the things that they might be affecting them now? What can we recommend as ways to work through that and cope with it?
If you are overwhelmed, please seek out a professional.
Yes.
Seek out a professional. That's going to always be my advice. Seek out a professional because you do not have to suffer in silence. There are people who can help. There are 4 of us right here who can help. So seek out professionals.
Speak to your church elder, speak to your primary care physician, speak to your friends. Going outside for a walk, just changing your environment can help with improving your mood. Small little things, not drinking so much coffee. Some people drink like a whole canister of coffee every single day, and that does something to your mood.
And I also would add, thinking about depression and anxiety, it's energy, right? And so in order to get the energy out, you have to do some movement. You got to do some physical exercise,
Yes.
breath work, some yoga, whatever the case may be. You can scream. I always tell people, just get it out, write it out, scream it out, whatever the case may be. You got to move. You got to move your body. You can't stay stuck in that sedentary state. You have to move to allow the energy to flow.
Yeah, keep a routine. Like get up, take a bath, brush your hair, brush your teeth. Keep your daily routine up because people lack their hygiene when they when they have emotional difficulties. So just doing those things can improve how you feel.
I am all for movement. That's a big thing for me, even at work. Like the standard thing, because I work for the military, their standard thing is go work out. But I believe in it, whether it's go for a walk. I love like martial arts and stuff like that. For one, it helps you. If I'm feeling anxious, I can feel unanxious real quick if I'm getting hit or I'm hitting somebody, in a safe, controlled way. But yeah, being able to burn off some of that energy, just like you said, to keep that energy moving and not being sedentary, because we can start to sink in and mold into our couch when we don't feel like moving. We don't feel like leaving the house. We don't feel like getting out of our room. And we just want to sit and watch TV all day. So forcing yourself, even if the things that I don't want to do are probably the things that I need to be doing when I'm in that space. I don't feel like talking to anybody. Well, let's go find somebody to talk to. So that's important. And I think it's good for people to hear that. And there's so many we can have a laundry list of things that we can do to try to get to a better place. And it's not a one-time conversation. So we are approaching the end of our hour in our time here. We have had great discussion amongst ourselves. Unfortunately, for those of you that are seeing this later, we had some technical difficulties. But
it's my fault. My apologies, everybody.
But it's still here for you to take a look at, and we can work on reconvening at another time to continue this discussion and other discussions that are necessary for us as human beings, but us as a people as well. More so for us as a people to help us move forward with what we're doing and where we're trying to get to in our life. So for those that are watching it later, we do thank you for watching it later. And again, we apologize for the difficulties that we fought through, but we still wanted to make sure that we provided a product for you to look at and learn from one way or another.
And we want to hear from you. We want to hear what your thoughts are, your ideas, your comments. It's important because it takes one, and we're four, but you can help as well to elevate yourself and our community. So,
and even the topics for future Healing Pearl doctors.
Definitely. Definitely.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a good one. God bless.